We are recording. Welcome, everybody, to the 2020 MATSOL Virtual Conference, to the last day of the conference. I am Jason Fay, the Program and Member Engagement Coordinator at MATSOL, and we are all happy to be here.
Hi, everyone. I'm Helen Solorzano, MATSOL Executive Director. Every year, over 1,200 MATSOL members gather for 4 days at our annual conference to share their expertise, experience, and insights as part of our mission to promote equity and excellence for English learners. This year, we can't be together in person, but are instead gathering here virtually to continue our professional learning. We want to take a moment to acknowledge the recent events around the murder of George Floyd and the protests against police brutality and systemic racism going on in Massachusetts and around the nation. We stand with members of our community who are grieving, angry, and afraid, and call for change. So on behalf of the MATSOL Board of Directors and the MATSOL staff, we want to welcome everyone here to this presentation. All the attendees and our presenter, we're really glad you're here with us to see this presentation. I have a couple of announcements of upcoming events, if you can go to the next slide. I just wanted to let people know that we're going to have a MATSOL annual meeting and open house. We usually have the annual meeting during the in-person conference, but we're going to have it after the conference. We're scheduling that now, so it'll be in the next few weeks. And also just make you aware that this year TESOL is having a virtual advocacy and policy summit, June 22nd to 24th. You can see their website for the information on that, but it's a great opportunity to get involved in some advocacy. So I'll hand it back to Jason.
Thanks, Helen. So for webinar controls, there are 3 main buttons and the audio settings. The chat will be enabled for this session, and it can be used to give you links as well from the presenter. So if there are links to get, please check the chat. Please only use your raise hand button when asked to by the presenter. You can also lower your own hand after you raise it. If you have a question, click on Q&A. If you see your question already asked, please click the thumbs up icon at the bottom left of that question. This will upvote that question and give it priority. We are excited and grateful to have Dr. Chu Lee here to present on high-quality digital books, considering interactive features that support meaning making. Dr. Chu?
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Helen. I'm so excited to be here virtually with everybody. And oops, let me share my screen here. When we get started. All right, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
All right. So thank you for joining my webinar on high quality digital books, considering interactive features that support meaning making. Before I begin, I want to get a sense of the people who are here in this virtual space. There's a poll that you can take where, oops, excuse me. Oh, all right, sorry. There's a poll that you can take that asks you who you are. So if you're, Jason, if you could help me, oh, there you go. So who's here? So if you are a classroom teacher, elementary classroom teacher, you click on that, a teacher educator, an ESL teacher, a bilingual teacher, a parent, or other. And if you're other, maybe you could share in the chat box who you are. And you certainly could check in more than one box there. So I'll give you a few minutes to do that.
All right, we're at 82%.
All right, fantastic. How do I'm sorry, how do I get to see?
So yeah, when you want me to stop, you can just ask me to stop the poll.
All right.
All right, stop it.
Sure.
All right, it's at 89%.
Oh, fantastic. So we have, a wide range of attendees today with some classroom teachers, like 8% classroom teachers, 9% teacher educator, 75% ESL teachers, 5% bilingual, 12% parents and others. Let me see, are there anybody who would like to share um, what the other, let me see. An instructional coach, special ed teacher, professional learning director, fantastic, language acquisition coach, administrator. Well, welcome. I'm super excited to have you all here and joining me today. Um, and so this presentation is interactive and I'll be asking for engagement throughout the presentation. So, when there's the opportunity, just, use the chat function to participate. I will take all questions at the end of the presentation. So if you could save your questions then, or I guess you could just type your questions and I'll come back to the chat at the end to take a look to see which questions are available. So let me begin. I want to briefly introduce myself. My name is Chu Lee. I came here as a refugee from Vietnam by way of Cambodia and didn't speak any English until I was 5 years old. So I'm an English language learner. Majority of my elementary experience was, being pulled out and spent with my ESL teacher. And so I'm also a teacher. I taught for 6 years in Shanghai, China, in an inquiry-based curriculum in a co-teaching classroom. So I'm there in the purple, the bright purple. My co-teacher Cherry is on the opposite side of the class, and she's somebody who I plan with, and our units of inquiry. And the teacher next to me is Vivi, and she's a Mandarin teacher. So her role as a teacher was specifically to teach Mandarin. And prior to that, I worked in early care and also worked. My experience also extends up to high school, and of course, working at the higher ed levels with students as a teacher educator. I'm also a mom. Here are my 2 kids. They, they're biracial, and growing up in a multilingual household. I grew up speaking Khmer, Cantonese, and Chiozhou, and they're being exposed to that as well. From my parents and from my cousins who live close by. And as you can see here, the readers, my daughter's reading Brown Bear, with her favorite friend in the world, Curious George. So, this is all to say that, my experience, all of this informs my work in digital literacy. So when thinking of digital literacy, I want to, using the chat function, I want to get a sense of, what are people using digital technology in your day-to-day life? So for example, I use digital technology for social media purposes. I go on Twitter in order to find out real time what's happening with the news and stuff. So if a couple people or several people can share some, what are ways that you use digital technology in your day-to-day life? All right, fantastic. We have some answers for everything. One person wrote to communicate with students, to look recipes, find the news, to teach distance. We have remote learning, reading the newspaper and library books online, work, PD, communicating. So thank you guys. PBS learning, fantastic. So it's clear that we use technology in many aspects of our lives, right? Especially with COVID-19 pandemic, the reliance of technology has increased, 100-fold. We now use it to engage with our student for remote learning, to learn and take classes, to hang out with our friends through Zoom hangouts, right? to meet with our colleagues, to entertain ourselves via Netflix or Hulu, to shop for food, and like ordering food right now, and books and clothes and so on and so forth. So it's clear that digital technology plays a big role in our lives. So when we think about our students and digital technology, there are definitely a couple of factors we need to consider, and that's access and use. So let me just show this. Studies have shown that kids from low SES, low socioeconomic status, may not have reliable access to internet or access to digital tools such as laptops or Chromebooks or iPad. And I think that's actually been really evident with the pandemic and the immediate response to shut down schools, and in areas such as Boston Public School District, the need to go out and hand out Chromebooks to students, and also ensuring that the students have access to reliable internet. So it's, we're seeing that divide in terms of access and in terms of use. What we found, studies have shown that low SES tend to use low-level assignments, use technology for low-level assignments such as drill and practice. So in contrast, you have high socioeconomic status students who have access to high-speed internet, access to digital technology at school, maybe even a one-to-one setting in school and then at home. For students like with high SES, having probably access to more than one digital tool at home, having an iPad and an iPhone and a laptop. And studies have shown that students from high SES tend to use technology and taught to use for academic purposes. So access to tools and use are important. In fact, I'll give you a very brief example. Like I've actually worked with students that have used, because of access, they had to, they didn't have access to a laptop, so they used their cell phones to write out papers. So I think it's just, again, to emphasize like the importance of choosing tools and and how we use and access technology when we think about serving all the students in front of us. So, which brings me to, what are high leverage digital tools to support all young learners? And one tool that I think that should be considered, and I think all of you who are here considering it, is the use of digital books. Let me see. Oh, I apologize. I don't know what's going on here. Before I jump into digital books, I want to talk about the importance of choosing quality digital books. So research has shown that quality printed children's book is important for literacy development, and that thinking extends to the quality of digital books as well. Since technology plays a significant role in our day-to-day lives, as that was shared from the chat, using in every part of our lives now, right? Especially as students are learning remotely, and screen times for teachers and parents are increasing in terms of use. We need to change our understanding on how to incorporate digital technologies in our day-to-day life, especially for young students, and how they read and how readers negotiate meaning through features, interactive features, and hotspots found in current digital books. I just want to share that studies that actually examine the quality of digital books were conducted almost 20 years ago. So needless to say, the kinds of technology we're using now are vastly different than what was studied back then. And, from CD-ROM to, we have a variety of digital books that doesn't require a CD. So my research actually examines that, the interactive features found in high quality digital book versions of picture books. So with that being said, I would like to give a brief background on picture books. Picture books play a significant role in children's literacy development. As a parent, I read through multiple books day and night, and oftentimes repeatedly. So my daughter, 2.5-year-old daughter, would have me read a book, and then after I'm done reading the book, she wants to hear it again, and again and again and again. And and sometimes it might happen before night bedtime because she's trying to, it's one of her delay tactics. But you know, so and you know, so she's really engaged as a reader, and that's just to show you know, how immersive that experience is for children. So as a reader, you engage with the text and the illustration to make a meaning. And this interaction, all three interaction, you know, the reader, the text, the illustration creates an immersive reading experience. So how does this established literature around picture books translate into the digital world? Well, when we change the format of a picture book to a digital version, it brings on a completely different experience, and one that may not be as the author intended. So with that being said, researchers such as Yokota have argued that instead of pitting format against each other, like print versus digital, the conversation should be focused on utilizing form and format to better suit a child's literacy needs. So what that means is that if a child might be struggling with a book, a teacher may ask, is there a digital version of this text to support the child with a reading of this book? And so my research examines kind of a part of that by taking a look at the interactive features found in digital books version of high quality printed books. So these are the research questions that I've examined. I touch upon all of my research questions, but and like when I report out the key findings at the end, but I will address, you know, specifically looking at the interactive features. So I conducted a content feature analysis of 20 high quality digital book versions of picture books. So what that meant was I went on Horn Online Book Review and examined early books that were written for kids from 3-year-olds to 8-year-olds, and took and books that were highly rated, I would find the digital book version of that. And from all that I was able to find, there were 20 books that came out, were selected. I used Mandler and Johnson's story grammar, which are character, location, time, problem, story event, resolution, and theme. And I evaluated each of these interactive media effect using Armbruster and Anderson's construct of considerate and inconsiderate. So what it meant was, within these digital books, I've analyzed all these interactive features, and based on the number of interactive features, like if it was over 30% that, you know, disrupt the story or didn't support the meaning making of the story, then that whole book would be considered inconsiderate. And if less than 30% of the interactive features found in the book supported meaning making, it would be considered considerate. So what I found there were 2 book app companies that were largely represented in the study. The first is Ocean House Media, and here is a screenshot of a book from Ocean House Media, and the other is Loudcrow Interactive. So I'm going to kind of talk about this within these two categories. First, taking a look at Ocean House Media interactive features, and then Loudcrow Interactive. Out of the 20 books, 18 out of the 20 books were from Ocean House Media. And the 2 books that were selected from Loudcrow, the remaining 2 books were from Loudcrow Interactive. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to share with you a couple of YouTube videos, only because I do have my iPad, and we'll, you know, afterwards we'll give you a sense of some of the interactive features that you could find in these apps. But this kind of gives you, the YouTube video gives you a sense of, like, highlights the features that are available. So bear with me. Oops. All right. So the first book is How I Became a Pirate. as you are watching this, I want you to pay attention to what are you noticing from this? This is like a 30-second ad. What do you notice that what type of features are available? What are you noticing in terms of the stories? What are some of the digital affordances that are available in this particular book? This is from Ocean House Media. So I'm going to share this one with you, and then there's another book I'll share with you, just so you kind of get a sense of a pattern. So,
we actually can't hear the sound right now. Chu? Oh, I don't think she can hear me. Hi, Chu?
yeah.
We actually couldn't hear the sound.
Oh, you couldn't?
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's all right. Let's see. What should I do here?
So you can click on the share screen again. Oh, okay.
Okay, there you go. Oh, I had it click share computer sound. Let's see.
Where will we bury the treasure?
Robo, parrot.
Wow! Wow! Ahoy there, matey!
Whoa! Thunder.
Record a new voice.
How I became a pirate.
Oops.
How I became a pirate. Written by Melinda Long. Illustrated.
And now,
All right, and the other example I'm going to show, again, is an ad, but then I will show you an actual app, just because of how we're being oriented on the screen here. This is Goodnight Construction Site. Again, it's very short, but pay attention to maybe some of the features that you might notice, and then and afterwards we'll check in with everyone through the chat function.
Night Construction Site by Sherry Dusky Rinker and Tom Lichtenheld. Crane truck.
Hey, pipe down!
Bulldozer. Blade.
Record a new voice.
So, I'll see, I don't know if you can see this, but just to kind of give you an idea, this is, oops, read to me. I'll go through this. And then
Pirates have green teeth. I knew what it was.
There you go.
I tried to tell Mom.
There's some options that you can see. So you could click to turn these things off. So using the chat function, maybe a couple of people could share out what they've noticed in terms of the features that, okay, so someone wrote, I think the reader's attention will be drawn away from the words because of the movement of the illustration. Okay, there's animation, vocabulary words in bold, words highlighted, sound effects, vocabulary highlighted, the highlighted key vocabulary word, sounds to support meaning. All right, not supported at the discourse level. Excellent. So those are animated, real human voices, not electronic. So yes, I think people who are sharing right now are bringing up some excellent points. What you're noticing is that there are vocabulary. I think in that video, it seems like there's much more animation than it is and the actual story. There's a little bit of movement, but it's not as animated as where it's not fully animated, if that makes any sense. Okay, options to read to himself or hear the words. So all of those things are are definitely available there. There's not much, really not much animation. There's expressive narration. There are highlighted text. You have the option to record yourself reading it or someone else reading it, as well as, you know, turning off and on the sound effects, tapping on, you could, you know, click on tapping off the photo, like pictures, so you don't, students won't have the option to kind of tap on the words. And you could turn the page faster if you need be. So I think you guys were able to note that. Here's an example of a screenshot from Byron Barton's truck. And you know, that's a screenshot of me like tapping on streetlights and stoplights. So you see that those words are being highlighted. And the other book here, and so I'll share with you like 2 short videos from Lauco Interactive. These little, I guess, trailers or apps or advertisement for this is a little bit different. So you could kind of pay attention to what Lauco does with their books. All right. This screenshot is from Barnyard Dance by Sandra Boynton. So kind of pay attention and maybe, you know, think about like some similarities or differences.
Bow to the horse, bow to the cow, twirl with the pig if you know how. With a bow and a moo and a cock-a-doodle-doo, everybody promenade 2 by 2. Barnyard Dance.
So that's Barnyard Dance from Lauco Interactive, and this is Goodnight Moon from the same publishing, Bookout Publishing.
Moon. And there were 3 little bears sitting on chairs, and 2 little kittens, and a pair of mittens, and a little toy house, and a young mouse. And a comb.
All right, and again, I'll just kind of give you an example on, let's see, my iPad here. Hopefully you'll be able to see it. There you go. So you can hear the
Goodnight Moon by Margaret Wise Brown.
So, you know,
in the great green room, there was a telephone.
You can see that the words are highlighted a little bit. I could, you know, there's like something called a mouse hunt. So kind of going back to the chat function, if anyone want to share like what they noticed that was a little bit different from the Ocean House Media. Right, there's a visual effect for a physical book with pages, music at the intro. The images were more interactive. You see the book mirrors actual reading experience. Students can interact with the book. Inserted art tableaus. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Excellent. So, you know, directs a reader to characters. So, you know, music supports rhythm of language. Let's see. All right, thank you for sharing. So as you can see, like there's some variability between, you know, the 4 books that I just showed you, but like with Lauco Interactive, there's, you know, much more interactivity. There's the tapping, the moving, the twirling of the animals, especially in the Barnyard Dance book by Sandra Boynton. In the Goodnight Moon, there's more options for games. There's like the mouse hunts, you know, as you go throughout the story, you know, you could play with the mashed potatoes. So there's a bit more bells and whistles to the story than what was offered from the Ocean House Media book. Just to kind of provide an example. So all the books I've analyzed, all 20 books I've analyzed that were selected for this study were considerate books. So the 2 books by like that Sandra Boynton book and the Goodnight Moon book and all the the Ocean House Media books I analyze, all of those support meaning making. But I do want to give you an example of what an inconsiderate digital book looks like. And this is a book called The Three Little Pigs by Tabtail. And I analyzed this book for my pilot study. So unfortunately, this particular digital book has been discontinued in the sense that it no longer exists, which I think indicates the type of digital books that are created and sold, on the Apple Store, Google Play. You have different developers creating educational apps of well-known stories, and if it doesn't do well, it kind of feels like it kind of disappears in the world. So I'll just show you an example of like the difference between considerate and inconsiderate.
The Three Little Pigs. The three little pigs lived in a house with their mother. They were the best of friends and kind to each other. He tried to huff and puff, but the brick house didn't even budge. The pigs were so happy they invited their mother. They had a room for her too.
All right, apologies. It's suddenly it becomes like difficult to navigate on there. So that's an example of an inconsiderate digital book. This particular book, offers, as you can see, like there were 7 activities, the opportunity to do a jigsaw puzzle, to count, memorize, and play puzzles, there are hidden objects and painting. As you notice, like the texts weren't being highlighted. When the narrator was done reading, the page would just turn on its own automatically. Here is a screenshot of a mother taking a photo of the 3 little pigs, telling the reader, you can take a picture of the 3 little pigs and put it in your photos gallery. So, and then you press on one of the pig, he says peace and wears sunglasses. So all of this is to show that this digital book disrupts the flow of the story with all its bells and whistles, and the interactive features that are available really doesn't support meaning making at all. And also, I want to include that, like, because the page turns on its own, it really doesn't allow the reader to fully experience the story at their own pace. So that's being said, like, what are the common features that were found between in all the digital books I've analyzed? Well, there are an option for reading, the reading option. So you could read to self or read on my own. You can have someone read to you or read on your own. There are access to hotspots embedded within the illustration. So what that means is being able to tap on the illustration and have an action appear, albeit like a vocabulary word that might have a corresponding sound effect if it's appropriate. Expressive narration, access to sound effects and background music. I do want to, yes, so the design of the book, my findings show that the design of the book depended on the digital book app publishing company. So from all the books I've analyzed and their features, Ocean House Media had similar features, right? The ability to turn on and off, a focus on vocabulary words. I think one thing to note is that, like in Ocean House Media, the narrator will not read the word if you're tapping on, as kids do. Sometimes they'll just start tapping on anything on the screen. The narrator won't read what's being tapped on until the narration completes. So, and what I mean is that, like, when the narrator reading the page, it won't be disrupted, right? And the only way to kind of disrupt the reading is actually to kind of tap on the words from the text that's being read. And that's from Ocean House Media. Whereas Loud Crow Interactive, again, as as you've stated and noticed, there were more opportunities for games and like a little bit more interaction with the text. There weren't, the interactivities weren't common between the two texts. Again, it hinged on the actual story, whereas in Ocean House Media, the stories tended to be like very little animation, with like, you know, corresponding sound effect if available, but focus on vocabulary. So again, like I want to state, like all 20 digital books I've analyzed and that were selected and analyzed did support meaning making for kids. So, you know, as teachers, parents, educators, teacher educators, administrators, you know, when you are looking at books or evaluating books to select for personal use or educational use, these were the interactive features that were integral, that supported meaning making. So these are things that you should look out for when you are previewing any of these texts. Expressive narration of the story. Narration that cannot be disrupted by activation of hotspots. You know, today my daughter, while I was practicing my presentation, she got a hold of the iPad, and you know, the first thing she wanted to do was to press on everything. So, you know, having that option or that feature actually allows for the student to kind of focus on the story as opposed to the interactivity. Hotspots that link vocabulary into the story. Sound effects embedded in hotspots that correspond with vocabulary words, objects, animals, or people. So if there was a car, like in the Byron Barton, I could tap on the car and you'll hear like maybe a beep or a horn, like a horn, and then the word car might pop up. Hotspots that allow the reader to move objects around, but its actions correspond to the movements of the object. So what I mean by that is, in the series, the Byron Barton series of plane, trains, boats, you could kind of move the clouds around, but it, you know, the movement of the cloud actually corresponds to where clouds belong, right, in the sky. So it didn't go against, you know, you couldn't place it on the ground or in someone's house. So it kind of corresponded to the purpose of the object. Hotspot that correspond and support this story structure. An option to turn on and off reading sound effects, and an option to turn on and off interactive features. So, you know, if you're using it as the purpose of just kind of like just reading through the story, you know, you could turn all of that on and then have the student read it, or the parent read it, or an adult read it. So how can this inform your classroom practice as a teacher of English language learners, or, you know, coming from this, or from administrators and those who shared their variety of roles? You could use this information to evaluate the types of digital books that are out there in order to select digital books for your classroom use or digital libraries. You also use high quality digital books that may support vocabulary, exposure to new vocabulary, fluency, hearing an expressive narrator read the story, you know, allows for the students to practice that paucity and the reading, and also the opportunity to even record yourself as you read the story allows the students to hear how they're reading and their fluency. And all of this, you know, with the interactive features, the integral high quality features can support the meaning making, being able to understand what's happening in the story as a result of like the lack of disruption, like, you know, features that do not disrupt the flow of the text. You could also use digital books, like high quality digital books, for opportunities for independent reading. You know, you give it to a student. Like I said, I gave it to my daughter today, who actually didn't want to give it to her, but she insisted because she wanted to listen to the books on her own with the sound effects and the music, and she was really drawn by it. And opportunities to kind of do independent reading, even choral reading with the digital books, paired reading, you know, having the student and the narrator read the books together. So those are some ideas as to how you can inform your classroom practice. Let me see, I just want to make sure. I also took a look at the ELDs, and so when I'm thinking about ELDs for listening readings, how can digital books I've selected support students? I think it could kind of support students in the between, you know, entering through level 1 to level 3. But again, it would depend on the digital book. So if you're using something like from Loudco Media, like the Sandra Boynton book, I would probably augment that with instruction on how to read through the story, as opposed to the book like from Ocean House Media, like How I Became a Pirate, only because both of the interactivity varied. So when thinking about using this, I think you could use it for students for level 1 to level 3. And that's it. I don't know if there's like, this is time for questions, if anyone has, in terms of the type of books I evaluated or anything else.
All right. Well, why don't you go ahead and click on the Q&A button?
Oh, Q&A. I keep on going to a chat function. Sorry. All right. Let me get out of this screen.
Oh, so it's still not working when you're in share screen?
Yeah. So let me just share screen here. Q&A. All right. Are these interactive platform screen for bias? Can you answer that? Could you kind of talk more about that? What do you mean by bias?
Do you want that person unmuted?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. If you could unmute it, or if you feel comfortable and want to just type that out.
Okay. Yeah. Graciela, if you want to speak, you can raise your hand and I will unmute you. Okay, Graciela, please unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hi. The question I have is, it's unclear to me in your findings whether you selected the books or determined that there was one platform that was better than another, or more applicable, or more what you would call quality.
Right.
And from an ESL perspective, the examples that you showed were pretty steeped in like regionalisms and things that children who are, you know, second language learners in this country may have very little access to culturally.
Right.
So I wasn't sure whether you were looking at that at all, or whether you're just looking at these characteristics of what makes for a quality digital interactive book.
Graciela, hopefully I'm pronouncing your name correctly. I think that's an excellent question, and I did not look for those like particular biases in the books, right? In terms of like the cultural aspect. Like my specific study actually was to look at what type of features were available now. Does that make sense? So I took a look at, like, in order to determine the books to analyze, I took a look at, you know, like I said, the Horn Book Review, and went to find out, you know, those who were like books that were like on lists for kindergarten to second grade, children's list for kindergarten to second grade, if they were high level, if they were rated highly by Horn Book Review, and then found the digital counterpart to that, if that makes any sense. So just to get a sense of what are the qualities what are the interactive feature qualities available in these books. So my next step certainly would be to take a look at what other books that are out there in order to support students from different, from a variety of different culture, right? Does that make sense?
Yes, within the constraints, I would say, of these interactive platforms. I'm not sure how many are out there or whether you found some that did not meet. I think you did show us one that you thought was too busy and didn't stop and didn't really, offer some of these other characteristics. So from a purely mechanical, trait point of view, I understand what you were looking for.
Yeah, I mean, so the study is very limited. I think, there's still so much more to look at, right? Like my next step is actually to take a look at what are because my selection criteria was very rigid, it didn't allow me to kind of get a sense of a variety of other digital books that are available out there. So my next step would be to take a look at that. Kind of open up my selection criteria and take a look at, all right, let's take a look at a variety of different books that are available, and then the digital version of that, and then analyze the interactive features that have been embedded in these books.
Right, I understand. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That's a great question. And, that's certainly actually my next step in terms of my research. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Do I have a list of books and titles I could share with you guys? Yes, I'm happy to do that. Maybe, Jason, if I could give you a list, you could share it out to the attendees afterwards. Is that possible?
Yes, we can do that.
Okay. Are these also available in Spanish? Based on my analysis, I have not seen digital books in Spanish, unfortunately. Again, this is the beginning of my research, and I will be starting to take a look at, other digital books available in a number of different languages, and because it's absolutely important. Can I recommend an online site for books in Portuguese? I cannot recommend an online site for books in Portuguese. I'm sorry. I haven't, I've really just been focusing, looking at these very rigid digital books. But I will definitely add that to, I'll take a look at language abilities, how you could, other languages that are available out there for digital books. All right, have you looked into digital books from A to Z, RAS Plus? What is your opinion? Sorry. I've actually used reading A to Z when I was teaching, but I haven't sat down and actually analyze it, and also RAS Plus, A to Z RAS Plus, that's just one thing. I haven't looked at it through these analytical, lens. I think generally speaking, I haven't, to be honest, I haven't really looked at RAS Plus in a while. So I can recall that, I know you could print out books from there. I think the books from Reading A to Z RAS Plus is are different from the digital books I've analyzed. From my memory, I don't think they're as interactive as the digital books that I've analyzed. So I can't, I think it depends on purpose of and use. In regards to Reading A to Z and RAS Plus. I feel like I apologize if I didn't answer that question for you. Are these digital book apps free? Unfortunately, they're not. I actually reached out to Ocean House Media to see if they would be willing to kind of offer a free app. I think if you follow them on social media, they do kind of give out occasionally free book apps, digital book apps. But I think the costs of these digital book apps range from, I think like some of them can be free, but like range from like $2 to like $5. So unfortunately, it's not free. Are the digital book or apps that you mentioned free? Again, unfortunately, they're not free. Are there any other questions?
We do have Anna who's raising her hand. Would you like to take that
Oh,
question?
yeah.
Okay, Anna, please unmute yourself. You're on.
Hi, Anna.
So Anna, you have to actually unmute yourself now that you're on.
No, sorry. It was hi. It was a mistake. I was just trying to go to Q&A and I pressed the raising the hand.
Okay.
Just thank you for your presentation. I can tell you. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else or any other questions? Yes.
Yeah, I think that's it. And on behalf of MATSOL, thank you, Dr. Lee. Yeah.
All right, thank you. I appreciate all of you for attending today. I really appreciate your presence. And I do want to like emphasize, like, thank you, MATSOL, for taking your position. Like, in light of what's happening today, of course, I do want to give a shout out again to Black Lives Matter movement in order to dismantle the systemic racism in this country for a just and equitable today and future. You know, stay with me. I will be taking on board the questions that have been asked and we'll be analyzing it moving forward with my research. So thank you very much. And I hope everyone have a beautiful day, safe day during this pandemic and insanity at the same time.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you for presenting.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was a great presentation.
Oh, thanks, Jason.
Yeah. And then for everyone, all of our attendees, when you leave, you should get a post-webinar evaluation. Please fill that out. We always love your feedback and we would like to improve on it. Okay, stopping the recording.